This week's episode of the Salt and Sauce Chat Show is sponsored by North Broad Street Records, bringing you the very best in unissued music. North Broad Street Records discovers and brings to vinyl cool, unfinished gems. For more information, please visit www.northbroadst.co.uk. Coming up on this week's Salt and Sauce Chat Show.
I got home. They never said anything to me now when I was there. So I got home and I got to the house and I'm working away because I was working as an electrician in Ireland. Right. I was finishing off my apprenticeship and I got a text from an agent saying, "What did you do over there?" He said, "The two boys want you to move on over tomorrow." So I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, pack your stuff. You're over. You're gone." It's very tough. There is no training given to lads for that. You know, there's no training. And I don't even think even if there was training, anything could prepare you for that. This is who you are, this is what you do, it's your identity, it's your personality, it's your love. When you feel you're not giving to the team and all your mates, you feel like you're actually taking away and you're detracting from them. And you feel like you're sort of stealing a living. Human beings need physical stress. We need stress to keep our bodies alive. You know, we need to pick up little bits of bacteria and stuff to keep us healthy. You know, our that's what our immune system is there for. You know, we have our gut lined with bacteria, you know, so I think without exercise, I think we'd go mad.
Welcome along to another episode of the Salt and Sauce Chat Show. I'm David Simmonds, and on this week's show, delighted to be joined by former Shamrock Rovers, Dunfermline and Aberdeen defender. We've got Richie Byrne on the show. Richie, thanks for joining us, mate.
No problem. Thanks very much for having me.
No bother. So you're coming live from Dubai as we speak. Obviously, there's a bit of a time difference here. We can see the background. How's life in Dubai at the moment?
It's a strange one, you know, because everything is literally working as normal. People are walking around. You just got to wear your mask. Shops are open. Pubs are open. But I just heard today they've just closed the schools. So, you know, there is a problem here. They've had a huge surge in numbers of cases of COVID, but that is obviously because we've had a lot of people coming in on holiday, you know, and whatever, trying to escape their country, where COVID has locked down everything. So there's been a surge here, but look, it's still okay for now. I think they deal with things very well here. So hopefully long may it continue and people can keep working and keep making a few bob.
Yeah, I mean, what brings you to Dubai? Are you over there on work purposes or?
So yeah, I have a client here that I'm training at the moment. So that's basically what I'm doing here. So I'm training him. He's from London and he's over here a few months. So he asked me to come over and train him while he's here for a couple of months. And also just to help me support myself and get away from London and keep working. You know, so I still do my guys online. I still have a load of clients that I do online on the laptop here. But then it's difficult to train people face to face in London at the moment. So here we can go to the gym. I can train people in the gym. We can go out and run. I do football sessions with them as well. We've got groups of lads that we get to join in and play football with. So it's quite good. You know, you can get a nice varied amount of training in.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't know if you're aware, but over here there was a bit of a scandal involving Celtic and their trip to Dubai. Are you aware of that, being over there?
I don't know what happened with the lads. I actually haven't heard anything. No one texted me about
right,
it. What
okay.
happened? Yeah,
no, right. Yeah, so obviously, as you mentioned, we're on full lockdown over here. So Celtic, Neil Lennon, the squad obviously went over to Dubai for their Christmas sort of getaway, their time in the sun, and it caused a bit of an uproar over here in Scotland. Two of the players come back tested positive for COVID as a result of the trip. So yeah, I mean, there's been a bit of an uproar. I just wondered if there was that news had kind of obviously spread to the other side of the world, if you like.
No, I didn't even hear about that. So look, there's people out drinking quite regularly here. So yeah, I'm hearing stories about people just coming over here and not having a valid COVID-19 test. So that can add to the problem. So look, it is what it is. You can catch it anywhere, and I think it's just the level of transmission is just so high with it that it's hard to blame people and it's hard to be angry at people because you can literally get it anywhere. So what can you say? What can you say to that? You know, they could have got it on the plane, you know, exactly. On the way over, on the way back. You know, you can't turn around and say they got it in the pub because they might have got it off a knife where they were eating, you know. So So you never know, and I just don't think we can be too critical. As long as they, they're taking the appropriate precautions as they should be for a professional club at the level of Celtic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's talk football. You grew up in Dublin, you played at a boys' club level. During your teenage years, was there any kind of clubs looking at you at that stage?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I got a shout from Wolverhampton Wanderers. I went over there about 7 or 8 times. The youth development officer, me and him got on really well. He was a left back as well. His name was Chris Evans, and what a left foot he had. So he used to play for. I think he played for the Welsh first team. So he played for Wales, but he'd get the ball out, in training, and he'd put on the halfway line, and he'd just zing it, and it'd hit the crossbar, and he'd do 3 or 4 of them in a row, and then if he missed one, he'd say, "Oh, that ball was flat," But he was brilliant. So I was getting on very well with him, and for some reason or another. One of the guys that was sending me away, one of the scouts said, "Listen, I think you should go to Tranmere, and maybe, that will stoke up the interest of Wolves and make them want to buy you, because he'd sold, honestly, about 8 of our guys to English clubs. So the year above me, loads of them went away. I think nearly all of the first starting 11 went away to somebody. So Keith Andrews was in that team as well, and there was a couple of lads. 3 of them went to Liverpool. Keith Andrews obviously went to Wolves, so he was there. Him and Robbie Keane were signing for Wolves when I was going over with him.
Right.
So I went over on a trip to Tranmere, and we played Wolves, and I had a stinker. So Tranmere didn't want me, right? So Tranmere didn't take me. I went back, and my mother, I only heard this about 2 years ago. My mother turned around and told me, I was in the car with the kids, my sister and my son, and my mother turned around and told me, "Richie, you didn't sign for Wolves because I actually rang the guy and told him I didn't want you to leave school."
Thanks,
I
Mum.
crashed the car. So I'm saying that's my reason why I didn't do so well. But anyway, I played on at boys level, and I nearly actually quit football at about 17. I was starting to get into a little bit of hanging around with fellas that I shouldn't have been hanging around with, who weren't football players. So luckily enough, I had this manager. He's literally just texted me now. I swear to God. I had this guy from Dublin. He was the manager of this team called Belvedere, and he was always trying to get me to sign. And I used to hang around up in this particular area and play football with the lads, and they'd do whatever, and I'd be with the football. And he used to always try and find me. And one day he came in the car. He had 2 players in the back. And he said, "Richie, come here." So I come over to him. He said, "Listen, you got to sign for us." He said, "You can't be hanging around here with these guys doing that. You got to sign for this club." I was like, no. So anyway, he left. And then the next day, the other manager came down to where I lived. Now I lived in an apartment block, or a block of flats is what we called them. Be similar to like Glasgow or something.
Yeah.
So he knocked on the door and came in, and I said to him, "How did you get here?" He said, "I drove down." I said, "Where's your car?" He said, "Outside." I said, "You left your car outside here?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Don't worry, I paid a couple of kids to watch the car for me." Now he was from another mad area, so my area wasn't the best area. But once he said that, and I thought, right, this fella's coming into my area, driving down, I need to sign. I have to sign. So I signed with Belvedere, stayed on, played there under 17s, 18. We won the league, and we got to the All Ireland final, beaten by a very good Cherry Orchard team. So like we had a very good team. 4 of our lads went away then, and then 4 or 5 of us went to Shamrock Rovers. So the manager.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah, in 2000, that's when you signed for Shamrock. Is that right? Was that your first sort of taste of senior football?
Yeah, so we went there. About 5 of us went down, and the speed of it was unbelievable from what we were used to. So the training was a million miles an hour, and it was great crack. The lads were very funny. But it was mad being around the first team. So you had the reserves, and then you had the first team players, fellas that had played for Liverpool. They play for all these clubs in England, and they come back. So they were at a very high level, compared to what we were at coming from boys football. Mm-hmm. So it was a very big step up and a steep learning curve, but it was great. And I always say this, there was one fella that really looked after me, a fella called Mark Kenny, and he played with Liverpool. Jan Malby taught him how to take free kicks. Right. And he really looked after me in the club, and he's a very, very funny guy. So he'd have great crack with you and make you feel real comfortable. He'd bring you out and You know, he'd look after, he'd drive you home. He used to drive me home from training as well. And another fella, Terry Palmer, as well. So, like the two of them really looked after me as a young lad coming into the team. And it was a great experience. We did really well as a club when I was there. We got into Europe and everything. So we played I think I played about 4 European games with Rovers.
Yeah, was it the Intertotal Cup back then, on the UEFA Cup as well? Yeah, with Shamrock.
Yeah, so I think we might have played in both. Yeah, so with the Intertoto we did quite well. We got to we played a team called Slovan Liberec. We were knocked out one year by them, and they were ridiculous. They were so good. And I think the year previous, maybe it might have been. I think we got through and we played Djurgårdens. Now Djurgårdens are if you look at the UEFA Cup in the photo, they're always in it. They play and beat big teams all the time. When I played, they had me playing centre midfield. They had me marking a fella called Kim Kellstrom, who went to Arsenal then a year later, so or a couple of years later, whatever it was. But like, it was a great experience, you know. And we were a semi-pro outfit, really, going up against full-time pros. And again, that's a huge step up, you know. But it was great. It was a great time, and you know, I had some great memories there with the lads.
Yeah, in 2003 you got the move over to Scotland. You signed for Dunfermline. Do you remember how that all came about? Was there scouts coming over to watch you in Ireland?
There was a bit of talk about me going. I was actually looking at going to Sheffield United at the time, and a fella called Noel Hunt, which you all probably know, he used to play for Dundee United and Dunfermline with me. He was getting a lot of attention. There was loads of scouts coming because he was baiting the net down in Ireland, and he was explosive. So a lot of clubs are coming looking at him. Jimmy Calderwood, Jimmy Nicholl came over to watch him when we played Celtic. We played Celtic in a like a friendly. And funny enough, that guy I'm telling you about, that Mark Kenny, that Jan Malby taught me how to take free kicks, he stuck one in the top bin against Celtic. So we're winning 1-0. You want to see this free kick? It was unbelievable. So we're winning 1-0, and I'm playing midfield against Paul Lambert.
Right.
And we just kept bashing the ball into Hunty. Hunty was playing up against Bobo Balde, and he battered him. So the two Jimmies loved that, right? So they took Hunty, and then Hunty was telling them about me. And they realised then I was actually a left back. So they then took me over on a trial. So I went over on the trial, and Barry Nick picked me up the first morning there, you know, and he said, Richie, you know, you just got to get stuck in here. You know, the gaffer loves that. You know, so when I got to the training ground, Hunty and Gary Dempsey were there, and they were like, Jesus, Richie, you're here. They said, just bleeding batter everybody. So in training, I got stuck in. I'll never forget, I smashed Jason there, you know, in a tackle, and I heard Jimmy go, oh, Jess, that's all right there. You know, that's all right. So after that, I think they enjoyed a bit of that. So, yeah, they took me on, and I got home. They never said anything to me now when I was there. So I got home, and I got to the house, and I'm working away because I was working as an electrician in Ireland. Right. I was finishing off my apprenticeship, and I got a text from an agent saying, what did you do over there? He said, the two boys want you to move on over tomorrow. So I said, what? He said, yeah, pack your stuff. You're over. You're gone. Needless to say,
yeah, I was going to say, how did that sort? You mentioned that Shamrock was sort of like a part-time club, and then obviously you're getting that opportunity to go full-time in Scotland. How big a step was that from the part-time to obviously full-time at Dunfermline?
Honest to God, like, we were training. Now, to be fair, we were training 4 days a week with Shamrock. I had to take time off in work and everything to get the training, get the games. On a Saturday morning as well. Sometimes we'd do a bit on a Sunday. We're still training a lot, but not to the level and the intensity that you'd train at a full-time professional outfit. So when I got the news, I remember jumping on the bed. I'm jumping up and down on the bed, hopping around my bedroom like a madman, you know. But now Jimmy rang. I forgot this. Jimmy actually rang Don Givens. Now Don Givens was the Irish under-21 manager, and Don gave me a good reference. So only for Don giving me a good reference. Now I don't know if Jimmy would have taken me. And he rang Liam Buckley as well. Liam Buckley gave me a good reference from who was the manager of Shamrock Rovers at the time. So lucky enough, them two gave me a good reference. But going from part-time to full-time, it's a million miles away. It's a million miles. And I'm not like a technical player, so the technical side of it, I think when you're a technically excellent player, it's a bit easier. But when you're a player that's like a defender and you have to get up to a certain level of fitness and a certain level of technical ability, it's quite a big step up, you know. And as you know, the fitter you are, the easier the technical stuff is. But when you're out of breath and you're running and you're trying to catch your breath and you're trying to do things that are a bit tougher, it's a huge step up. Like my first few training sessions, Jimmy had played with 2 and 3 footballs in the passing circle. And you're looking around for the next, and you don't know where the ball's coming from or where it's going. So it kept breaking down every time I get the ball. The lads would be hammering me in the session, and they'd be taking the piss out of me, something terrible. Lee Bullen used to hammer everybody, but he'd slaughter you now if you made mistakes in the passing drill, Yeah. But look, it was a great learning curve, and I had to learn quick, because the boys wouldn't be nice to you,
Yeah, I mean, like you say, obviously all that hard work, it kind of paid off. You had a really successful time at Dunfermline in 2004. You got to the Scottish Cup final and played Celtic. What were your memories of that occasion?
Oh, do you know what? It was a whirlwind. I remember the club took us away for a week up in St Andrews, and we did a load of hard training sessions, and then we had a few points. And Jimmy let us all have a few points one night, right? And he said, right, lads, this is your blowout, right? And when it comes to that cup final, I want you all 100%. So I just remember we got the bus down, and I've never seen so many Dunfermline fans. I don't think anybody has. It was unbelievable. That's all you could see. It was just black and white. It was unreal. They had flags, they had everything. They're all singing on the way in. The bus journey on the way in was just, I can't even describe it. Like, I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about the bus journey on the way in. And then you get to Hampden and the bus goes underground, and you go in, then you get into the players' dressing room. The dressing room is bleeding huge, and they've all sorts, they've bats and everything there. Your gear is all hung up. It's just something that you just can't describe, and it's there for you. You're part of that. So we get in anyway, and then we could hear the singing. We could hear the Celtic fans and Dunfermline fans starting to sing. Now, a lot of Shamrock Rovers fans had come over the night before, and they were in the hotel with us. And Jimmy actually allowed them come in and to chat to me and Noel. And then when we went to bed, Jimmy sat up chatting with them and having a pint and a drink with them and telling them stories about it. Because Jimmy Nicholl was there. He loved it as well, Yep. So the two of them would be great crack around a table full of people, And Jimmy Nick sort of puts on the show then, and he'd be telling stories about everything. So it was great crack. But then the game came, and they were all along the side of the pitch, singing for me and Hunty, but they were in the Celtic end. Now, remember, Shamrock Rovers are green and white as well. Yeah. So they're over hugging us and saying hello to us and singing for us, So
the Pars fans must have been wondered what was going on there.
Oh, great. But that game, the lead up to the game was unreal. And then to actually get out into the pitch and see all the lads, Petrov, Larson, big Stan Varga and Bobo Balde, Neil Lennon, still what's his name, Agat, it was and Jackie Mack. It was an unbelievable, and Chris Sutton then as well played. It was an unbelievable game. It was a great game as well. The first half was a great first half.
You were 1-0 up at half time, weren't you? Dunfermline were 1-0 up going into the break.
Yeah, 1-0 up at half time. Skerler headed it from about, I don't know, it must have been about 18 yards or something. And I think Derek Young jumped in and nudged the keeper. It was a foul. It was a free out, but I think we deserved it from the way we were playing. I think we were playing quite well. We had a couple of chances that we probably could have scored from. Like I remember actually, I pinged the ball over for Stevie Crawford. He was in 1-on-1, but only for it just had a bit of backspin and just spun the backwards towards him and sort of stifled his run. But Stan Varga just got in and got a last-ditch tackle. If he'd have just got that extra touch past him, it was a goal, Yep. You trust him to score past anyone one-on-one. But yeah, I think we deserved that 1-0, the 1-0 up, So
obviously, it didn't go to plan the second half. It finished 3-1 to Celtic, obviously. But like you say, they had some talent on the part. They had Neil Lennon, they had the likes of Henrik Larsson as well. Was that not Henrik Larsson's last game for Celtic, I think, that game?
It was his last game for Celtic, yeah. So it was quite a special game, I think, for everybody, for all of us to witness Henrik Larsson's last game, for what a player, and to be part of that and to be involved in that game, it was tremendous. We all wanted it short, we all wanted it short, but no one was getting that. There was nobody getting that short.
Did you get anybody's afterwards? Did you smash the swap?
No, I don't think any of the Celtic lads wanted to swap their short. It was a bit of a sickener for us to lose 3-1. So I don't know. I kept me short, and I actually gave it to auction for. There was a child that had a serious disease in Dunfermline, and I auctioned it off. And funny enough, I actually got it back last year. One of the lads that worked in Dunfermline got it back. and gave it to me. So I have it now, and yeah, so I'm delighted to have that shirt still, because it's one of the biggest games I've played in. It was amazing.
Yeah, you mentioned one of your teammates earlier, Stevie Crawford. Obviously, he's the current Dunfermline manager. In that dressing room, there was a few guys that went on to management. Did you picture back then that Stevie Crawford was one that was going to progress into the manager's seat?
It's always hard to tell who will go into management. Some people talk a great game. Some people behave very well. Some people are very knowledgeable, but they're very quiet. So you never really know who's going to go in. Stevie always had his head on his shoulders, and he was, he wasn't the funniest lad in the dressing room, but he would say little things that you'd sort of think, he has a little bit about him, because I think as a manager, you got to have a little bit about you. You can't be any way sort of soft. You have to have strong views, strong opinions. And I think the few little things I heard of him, he was quite opinionated, and I think you have to have the strong opinion to move on to management, and as you know, Brewster went into management, Darren Young managing, and they all were quite strong-minded people, which I think you have to be, and Darren Young obviously get on very well with everyone, very funny guy, and Brewster, very dry humour, but understood the game very, very well, wouldn't be the funniest fella in the dressing room, but set examples all the time, setting a very good example for everybody. He played till he was 40 or more than 40.
Yeah, no, he did. He kicked on quite a bit. Yeah.
So Brew played. Do you know what? Brew would be in the dressing room, right? At about, we'd need to be in for 9:30. Brew would be in at 9 o'clock in his little pants, right, in his slips, right, stretching, right, right, a half an hour early. Lee Bullen would come in, and that'd be the end of it. He'd hammer him. But this happened every morning. The two of them would be at each other. It was brilliant, honest to God. Lee Bullen, it'd have us all in stitches slagging Brewster. And funny enough, Bully is now down Chef Wednesday, coaching down there as well. Barry Nick is coaching as well. But yeah, like Brew, he wouldn't care. He'd laugh. We'd laugh at Bully and then just say, yeah, whatever. And funny enough, he had the last laugh because he played the bleeding longest out of all of us. So whatever he was doing was working. You
need that sort of banter in a changing room, don't you? Do you kind of miss that camaraderie with the teammates and stuff?
I think when you talk to any player, that's the thing you miss the most. You miss the lads, you miss your mates, you miss every morning someone is getting roasted, or something is happening, and we're all going to have a laugh at something. And there's in every dressing room there's always 2 or 3 fellas that are just hilarious. So you really do miss that because you don't really get it anywhere else. I'm sure people that go into an office, you can't really banter people in an office. You have your HR departments who would put a stop to that very quickly. So it's literally no holds barred in the changing room, and it does build up your sort of resilience to abuse, because when you go into the fans, you're going to get a lot worse than what you get in the changing room. So the lads try to bring that up a level, so that when it comes to getting a bit of stick in the newspaper or off your manager or off the fans, you can deal with it and you can take it, because you look at some reviews that you get as a player, and it can be quite hurtful. When you try not to let anyone in here or let it affect you emotionally, but it does. If the more you read, it does seep in. So I think the best thing for a player is probably not to read your reviews. So you have to just do your best to get up to a level of skin thickness that you can deal with that. Yeah,
exactly. You mentioned Jimmy Calderwood a few times. What was he like to play for as a manager? Was he different class? He comes across, obviously, back then, obviously his health's not the greatest at the moment, but in his day, I mean, what a manager he must have been to play for.
He was unbelievable. Honestly, unbelievable. Jimmy, there's loads of things I could tell about him, but I remember one time I came into the change room and he says to me, Richie, you've been called into standby on the first team of the Irish squad, right? I was only in Dunfermline, I think about 9 months. He says, you're in the first team. If John O'Shea gets injured, you're in, And I have terrible language, so I started cursing, right? And he looked at me. He said, if Martin O'Neill called you down to Celtic, you can't be cursing and talking like that if you go down there, right? So watch your bleeding mouth, right? So I started laughing. I couldn't believe it. And he said, and by the way, it's not Jimmy, it's Gaffer, right? So And you sit there and you feel like a schoolboy around him because he feels like your dad. The things he says to you and the way he talks to you, you literally feel like he is your father. And that's literally the way he is. I think all the players, if you talk to all the lads that played under him, he literally is a father figure. Like he let me stay in his house when I first moved there. So I lived in Jimmy's house, and then I got my own house then eventually in Dunfermline. And just I bought a new car, right? I bought a Volkswagen Passat, right? I bought a Volkswagen Passat. I had a Peugeot, like a 15-year-old Peugeot I had, right?
Yeah.
And I bought a Passat when I went to Dunfermline. And he looked at me the first day I drove in. He looked at me, right? And he gives you that look, right? So I come downstairs and he goes, "Come here, you." So I went over to him. He said, "What are you doing buying a big car like that?" I said, "Gaffer, it's a Volkswagen and I need it because of my kid." He said, "You don't be wasting your money on things like that. You don't be spending your bleeding money on crap, right?" But it was things like that he'd say to you and he'd make you feel like a kid. But he was right, and a lot of the things he was doing it for your benefit and for the better of your career, But he was great. Training sessions were amazing. They were very fast. Very enjoyable. Jimmy Nick was fantastic. The banter between the two of them, and they'd slag every player. They give you all stick. And then in games, he'd say things to you, and he'd hammer some fellas, and he'd go a bit easy on some fellas. And then if we're losing, he'd say, "Right, lads, 2-4-4, two at the back. The rest of you attack and get goals from me." And we'd win more games than we'd lose. Like he did it a couple of times against Celtic now, and we got battered, but. More games than not, we get a goal or we come back. And some of them we get a win out of it. So he was brilliant in that sense as well.
I mean, he obviously must have rated yourself because when obviously the whole Aberdeen thing come along, you went up to Pittodrie with Jimmy. Is that correct?
So yeah, it took about 5-6 months. I think I was still at Dunfermline, and Davy Hay came in at Dunfermline, and we went on pre-season tour to Holland. And there was still trouble with the contracts and stuff like that, and money trouble at Dunfermline, and a lot of the lads had taken pay cuts. So there was an undercurrent there. Davy Hay came in with Billy Kirkwood and Paul Hegarty, and Heggy was great. Davy Hay was great, but I personally, I didn't get on with Billy Kirkwood, and a few of the young lads didn't, and. Where he is now, I think, speaks for itself. Why I didn't get on well with him, So there was a few things that happened that I sort of thought, what, I don't want to be there anymore. The training is not as good. And when I heard Jimmy wanted me up there, I was delighted to go. So, like I think Jimmy had a couple of people that he trusted in, and a couple of fellas who he felt he needed in the dressing room and in certain games for Aberdeen. Because now when I went there was some excellent players. Like, honestly, like the standard was very, very high, and they were fit. They were very fit. Now Jimmy's training is very hard as well, so he'd run the arse off it. But a lot of the lads were fit and quick. We Kevin McNaughton, Chris Clark, Michael Hart, Ricky Foster, John Stewart, Scotty Muirhead. Did I say Kevin McNaughton? I hope I did. Even Marcus Hoikinen. So a lot of the lads were quick and fit. They could keep running. So like the standard was very, very high in terms of the squad that was there. But I think he just wanted me up there for a bit of, just a bit of aggression. That I think he felt he wanted, and that's on that side of the pitch. I think he felt that he needed a bit of a stronger presence at the left side.
Yeah, I mean, like we've talked about before, being in Europe, you got into Europe with Aberdeen. You played against Atletico Madrid. They had the likes of Aguero and Diego Forlan in that team. How was that playing against those guys?
Again, it looks like a computer because that's how good they are. It's like watching FIFA because these fellas don't make mistakes, and when you watch a Champions League game and you're watching it and things just happen and you just think that that's just the way it is, But when you are down on the pitch and you're trying to stop them doing it and you're trying to chase the ball, it's happening at lightning speed and it's all one touch. It's so hard to deal with. And, I try to explain to people and, you just can't explain it. Again, it's like, what it's like? It's like when someone goes to Las Vegas. You can't explain how big Las Vegas is and all the lights and all that. You can't explain it until you go. And playing against them fellas, you'll never know it until you actually do it, because I thought that I could get close to people because I was quick, but they don't even give you a sniff because they play one touch, so you can't even get a chance to get them on a second touch. But what an experience, you know, what a game, what games to play in. Very, very tough, very humbling as well. If you ever thought of being big time, you go and play them fellas, you realise how far down the pecking order you are. You know, you're playing against fellas that have played in World Cups. They're unbelievable. You know, they're actually unbelievable. So it's a humbling experience, but it's an amazing thing to play against fellas that you've watched on telly. Like again with Celtic, I used to watch Celtic on TV. I've watched obviously a lot of these fellas: Manish, Thiago Motta, Luis Garcia, Max Rodriguez. I was watching all them playing these big, huge games, and then you're there beside them. You can't believe you have been chosen to play these games. You know, it's amazing. Well, at least I didn't. You know, because it's just surreal that you get the chance to play against these fellas, and I just come back as well from a hamstring injury, a career-ending injury, and I just never thought I'd play again. And I got to the point where I could actually run and almost sprint 100%, and I just didn't think I'd ever get back. And to be able to play in them games, I was just delighted. I enjoyed every minute of it. I remember nearly everything on the day up to playing. I remember doing my own, because I'd have to be in the gym on my own the night before, doing my own bits and pieces to prime my muscles for the next day, the game the next day. So I'd be doing lunges, hamstring stuff, glute activation, you know, strengthening me back, doing my core work. And I'd be on my own, you know, I'd be sitting with my music on my own, just prepared and making sure I was ready to be able to get through the game, you know. So when you get onto the pitch, you know, I'm enjoying it, and it was unbelievable. To get through that game was just fantastic, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on obviously your hamstring injury. It comes part and parcel with being a football player, picking up injuries here and there, but it was quite a serious hamstring injury you took, wasn't it, Richie?
Yeah, so funny enough, it was the year before, the pre-season we had in South Africa. I'd done my shoulder, and I come back from having a shoulder injury, and I played the last game of the season against Celtic, and then we went into the holidays. I came back, I'd done all my running, I was flying fit, and we did the pre-season in South Africa, and we had a load of running sessions that were quite tough. So my hip flexor was a little bit tight. So the last game, you know, I was sort of struggling. So we got back to Scotland, and then we had a game literally the next week against Inverness. So I played left back, and because my hip flexor was a bit tight, I didn't want to be clipping balls up the line. So I kept passing it back to Russell Anderson for him to clip it. And Jimmy went ballistic, right? I think we drew 1-1, right? They scored in the last minute, and I don't think it was my fault, but Jimmy went ballistic at me. He said, "You playing the ball backwards, you haven't got the balls to go forward." I said, "Gaff me leg." He said, "I don't care. You're playing on Wednesday in the Rezzies against Inverness, up in Inverness." So I went up to bloody Inverness, and it was a roasting hot day. So we're playing away. I'm playing centre half against Bain, I think his name was, the centre forward that they used to have. And I jumped up for a header, and as I came down, it had just been raining, so the rain came down in a little drizzle, so the ground was hard but wet. And I came down, and I went into a split, and I heard the pop, right? So I thought it was my shin guard snapping, you know, and I looked down, my shin guard was all right. I thought, what is that? So the physio come over and said, "Listen, I'm after doing something to my leg, and it's up high, and I was supposed to get scanned the next day." Now this is the critical sort of time. So the next day comes, and the other physio says, who wasn't at the game, he says, "You're grand, it's just a normal hamstring, you'll be fine." And that was it then. They never got scanned at that point. The damage was done, and after 12 weeks I still couldn't walk. Yeah. So they got it scanned again, and at that time the swelling has gone down, but you can't see the damage as clearly as you would have if you had done it that week. So that was how that injury sort of came about. And it just never healed properly. They could have opened about 6 months later or a year later, and they couldn't find anything, right? So eventually I came down to London. I got back playing anyway, and you know, I got through a certain amount of games. Eventually it went again and again and again and again. So I was having constant problems with it. I got let go out of Aberdeen, and then went to a couple of clubs in England, and I eventually had to retire. But I came down to London. I went to a specialist, and he told me, "Listen, this is what happened. You had an avulsion. You should have had it repaired surgically straight away that week. And you would have been out for about 12 weeks, 16 weeks, and then you would have been back to normal, you know." So that's the sort of bone of contention I have with football, because it's such a short career, but it can end in an instant, you know, and it just takes something like that to do you. So it's a tough thing to go through, and there's a lot of lads that go through these things, and it's a big issue in football. And we all want our favourite players to play. We look at Aguero, who was always getting injured. Ryan Giggs was always getting hamstrings. Fernando Torres got a hamstring and was never really the same. Michael Owen, never the same after he did his hamstring, then he did his knee. So all these lads that go through these sort of career-altering injuries, unfortunately, you very rarely come back the same player, because it takes such a toll on your body. And once it goes, it's very hard to repair it where it's normal again.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that was quite an interesting thing you said there, Richie. Obviously, 1 minute you're playing and then next minute, boom, all of a sudden it's over. How is that time? Like, how do you cope with that mentally? That, like you say, you've got the banter in the changing room with your mates. You're travelling here, there, and everywhere, playing football, like making a living playing sport, really. And then all of a sudden, boom, that's it. It's over. How do you mentally cope with something like that?
It's very tough. There is no training given to lads for that. There's no training. I don't even think, even if there was training, anything could prepare you for that. This is who you are. This is what you do. It's your identity. It's your personality. It's your love. When you feel you're not giving to the team and all your mates, you feel like you're actually taking away and you're detracting from them, and you feel like you're sort of stealing a living, and you're just hanging around. You're just like your third wheel nearly. So it's a horrible time. As high as the highs are, the lows are just so low that it's devastating. I can't even explain it. It's devastating when you're injured, when you're not playing, you're not part of the team. The lads are winning games. You're in the stand, in the box, watching the game. Like, I've had to watch games against Celtic, Rangers, Bayern Munich. I had to watch the lads draw 2-2. I didn't even get to go over to Germany then for the 5-1 defeat. And it's a horrible time. In terms of how do you deal with it, like, I was terrible to be around. The gaffer kept saying to me, "What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Why you not talking? Why you not laughing?" And it's hard, and he finished his injury from a leg break, Jimmy Calderwood, so it's a very distressing time, and you just feel empty, you feel a bit empty, and that you're not worth what you're getting paid, and it's just a horrible time, and then you got to think about the money. You're not getting your appearance or your win bonus, so you're losing out in a few different ways, and just watching the lads going out and playing, it's horrible. And someone coming into your position, like Ricky Foster came in and played my position, played left back. He's a right footer, and he's playing left back, and he was unbelievable. He was actually better than me. I was sitting watching him going, "Oh my God, I'm never getting back into this squad," And like, I play PlayStation with him now all the time. We're chatting all the time, but he was unbelievable. He might have got even player of the season that year, and you're watching it and you're thinking, I'm devastated. This is horrific. I'm never going to play. I'll have to play centre forward.
Back to the centre mid of the Shamrock days. So we touched on a lot of your teammates that go down the managerial route, like Stevie Crawford, Brewster, etc. Is that something you ever thought about doing? A lot of, obviously, ex-players tend to go down that route. Is that something that you fancied, or? Yeah,
look, I've done my B licence. I haven't done the A. I'm looking to get on to the A. Would it be something that I'd be interested in? Yeah, I'd be interested in coaching. I've coached at a lower level down in London, so I've coached youth players in the highest, the highest youth leagues, and then I went up and I coached a semi-pro team. We did all right, we did well. I enjoyed the experience of it. Something that I'd enjoy to be around. I don't know if I'm a number one. I don't know if I'd be more of a coach than a number one. Obviously, I've done my S&C qualification, so I did my masters in strength and conditioning. So in terms of what I love keeping players fit. I love making sure they don't get injured. I like to try and improve on their physical abilities and their robustness to be able to deal with training and games. But I also think I have a lot to offer in terms of coaching, coaching players, defensive play, sort of tactical awareness, for certain players. And sort of, another part of coaching as well is getting on with players. And I feel that I'm the type of coach that is able to get on with different types of players, and I understand the different needs of different players. And I think that's one big thing with being a coach or a manager. It's the emotional sort of awareness that you need to have to deal with different types of people. Because there's loads of different types of players. There's loads of different types of motivations for players. Some players are motivated with money, some with fame, some with just the fact of winning, and some just love playing football, and you have to manage that desire in each different type of player.
Yeah, no, I get that. You're over in Dubai just now, like we touched on at the start of the interview. You're doing some personal training stuff at the moment. Is that what you're doing with your time at the moment? Yeah, just personal training stuff.
Yeah, so in London, I'd be training a lot of general population. So a lot of people that have certain jobs in London, I work right in the centre. So we get a lot of lawyers, and we get a good few students as well. But we have a nice mix. And then I do a little bit with players as well. So I do a bit of one-to-one stuff with some players, back to play training. Some lads just to build them up and get them a bit stronger, because some of the lads are a bit lightweight, especially when you come to England. It's a bit of a step up again physically. If you want to play in the likes of League One, Championship, Premier League, you gotta be an athlete now. Like the level of physicality it's bordering on outrageous. The distances these fellas are covering at speed. So it's not the total distance that they're traveling, it's the amount of sprints they're actually getting through now in the game. It's raising every year. So that's why we have all these hamstring injuries, because the distances are just crazy, and the speed that lads are running at, it's frightening. So you have to be robust enough to deal with that. So that's where we're sort of going now in terms of football coaching and S&C, is that sometimes you're probably not trying to improve the speed of the lads. It's just you're trying to allow them to be able to match that run multiple times now in a game. So instead of doing 15 sprints, you might now have to do 20 sprints.
A few guests that we've had on the show obviously talk about exercise. Last week we had Kerry Katona on the show. She was talking about obviously the mental health side of things during lockdown, and how exercise can help release endorphins and give everybody that feel good factor. Do you agree with that, obviously? Or
I think there's no better way to sort of cleanse your mind than to get out and work hard, and I think when you think about the common sense of it, what happens when we lie down? If we lie down for too long, we get bed sores. So human beings need physical stress. We need stress to keep our bodies alive. We need to pick up little bits of bacteria and stuff to keep us healthy. Our that's what our immune system is there for. We have our gut lined with bacteria. So I think without exercise, I think we'd go mad, and I follow The Rock on Instagram. I don't know if any of you guys do as well, where he says it's the cheapest form of therapy when he goes into the gym. And funny enough, when I play football with the lads, I play a 5-a-side or a 7-a-side, and if I win, the rest of the week is unbelievable. Now obviously if I lose, I take that to heart as well, even with a 5-a-side. But the difference exercise can make to you is unbelievable. Being a trainer the last 10 years, I've seen huge progress in some people. I have one girl that totally changed her body and her life changed. She was a studying accountant, and she decided then she was going to move to, I think she moved actually here to Dubai. So she moved to Dubai and she started a fitness blog talking about her training and how she changed her body. And a company back in London called her and said, listen, will you come and work for us and be our ambassador? And she's now making a fair amount of money with this company, doing extremely well, organising fitness events. So fitness can change your life in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned you're out in Dubai at the moment. You're working with a client there. Is there plans, obviously, to return back to London and carry on your trade there, or?
Yeah, 100%. I got to go back to London. So my kid, that he was born in Dublin, came to Dunfermline with me, stayed in Dunfermline most of his time, moved to Airdrie for a little bit, then back to Dunfermline. He's made the big jump and he's living with me now. He's now living with his dad in London. So needless to say, I need to get back to him. He's on his own now. He's 18. So he's on his own in the house, but I can't leave him. I can't leave him on his own in London. Now he's done very well. He's come down to London and he's got himself an apprenticeship as an electrician. So he's doing great. So he has 3 years to finish that off. And then he's his own man. But I think I need to be there for the 3 years to teach him certain things, that boys need to learn from their dad. So, I'll definitely be around. It's for the short term. A little small period that we're all going through tough times at the moment, and I'm just trying to get through it as well as I can. I'm sure along with everybody else.
Yeah, do you do any of your fitness stuff online? Is there anywhere that we can follow you? Or
So if people just jump on me Instagram at Born Richie B, I post a little bit on that. I have a fitness page that'll be linked to that, so there'll be workouts coming on that people can jump on and look at some technical stuff and see what sort of things that you can do. In terms of home training, there's loads that you can do. It's great if you have equipment. If you don't, you just got to do what you can. But there's a lot of stuff out there. But in terms of my style and what I'll be doing, I do work with a lot of people. I do work with weights, and then I do a lot of high intensity stuff. But you can replicate that at home without the weights. So there's loads you can do as long as you monitor or assess where you are. You have a plan of improvement, and you just stick to the plan and gradually build up. You don't jump in doing 1,000 sit-ups, in the first day. You won't be able to move. Yeah. So there's got to be a progression, and there's got to be technical progression and intensity progression. So these are the sort of the things that we look at as we train. But so people can jump on my Instagram. There's stuff there. There's bits and pieces. There will be more because I realised that Instagram is where it's starting to go now. And as much as I hate posing in front of the camera, I have to learn how to do it and do it better than what I have been doing,
No, absolutely, mate. Get online, check him out, Richie Byrne. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure on this week's show. Richie Byrne.
Thank you very much, guys. Good luck.